All right. Cool. You are being recorded. So let's get going. Welcome again to Effective Methods to Contact Your Legislator. I am Amy Sharma. All right, so yeah, quick rundown on the legalities. This is being recorded. If you have any questions, please pipe up in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and just ask the question. There's not too many people on here that'll get unruly. And to mute on the phone is *7, and to unmute is *6. All right, a little bit about me. My name's Amy Sharma. I have a PhD in biomedical engineering. I studied nuclear imaging. I was also a AAAS Science and Technology Fellow at the National Science Foundation. For those of you who don't know, the AAAS Science and Technology Fellowship's a year-long program in DC, sponsored by AAAS, and they teach you all about the government and how the government works and effective ways of communicating science with the outside world. I also work for Georgia Tech Research Institute as the Deputy Chief Scientist, and I started the Big Data vertical. I've worked at 2 data analytics startups as well, so pretty much all of my career I've been bridging the divide between various audiences. A little bit about shameless plug for Science for Georgia. We were formed in 2017 to build a grassroots network of science-friendly people who'd like to do something and be proactive and productive. So we offer communication training courses and how-to information, and then we provide low-stress events to use this new skill set that you have, including Science Tales and Trails, Atlanta Science Tavern, policy events like this letter writing, and science comedy. So we're trying to give you concrete actions to bridge the science communication gap. I'd like to, again, give a special thank you to the Emory Science Advocacy Network. They've been running this event for 3 years, so thanks, guys, for having a fantastic idea. So we're going to start off with a little story. Our friend Susie Science looked outside, and well, it's kind of a disaster out there, right? We're stuck in our houses. The earth is on fire. And she was like, if only they knew restoring the wetlands would cut down on hurricane damage, or honestly, if any of you have an idea of how we can get out of our houses faster, that would be really helpful. But a voice came from the sky and was like, look, Susie, there is no they. They don't know anything unless you tell them. So she's like, that's it. I'm going to contact my representative. And she sits down to write a letter. And then she's like, wait, what do I say? So we're going to talk about the 3 branches of government real quick. We're going to talk about the differences between our different legislators. We're going to talk about effective contact methods, and I'm going to provide you with some resources. Any questions? All right, cool. I'm going to assume people will pop in if they have them. The 3 branches. A little bit of a refresher from middle school here. There's 3 branches of government. The legislative branch, which is the U.S. Congress, they write the laws. So, for example, they're going to be the ones that's going to write the tax laws, or they're the ones that are actually going to write the economic stimulus package that they're hoping to pass soon. The executive branch then takes these laws, and they go out and enforce them, or they implement them, right? So tax policy is implemented by the IRS, which is an executive branch cabinet or a thing. So they enforce all those laws. And then the judicial branch is kind of the mediator, right? So if someone decides that they don't think a law is constitutional, or if they think that the executive branch is not necessarily interpreting or enforcing the laws or implementing the laws in the way that they were written, then that goes to the judicial branch, which is headed by the Supreme Court. All right, so let's talk a little bit about all of our different legislators. So there's approximately 330 million people in the U.S. population. In Congress, they're represented by 435 representatives and 100 senators, and there's 1 president. Some rough numbers here. It costs about $5,000 a day to run for Senate, and $5,000 an hour to launch a presidential campaign. Most campaigns last about 2 years. So if you think about your representatives, they serve 2-year terms. So the instant they hit office, they're already thinking about how they need to get reelected. They get 250 constituent contacts a day. So they can provide about 7 minutes of attention per contact. And the average legislative assistant works only for 8 hours or for about 8 months. So think about just the sheer volume of contact, the sheer number of things that are going on. There's not a lot of longevity in terms of these staffers. And again, so our U.S. representatives from the state of Georgia, there's about 10 million people within the state of Georgia. There's 14 representatives. So each district has about 700,000 people in them, but they're very different. So if you look at the districts here surrounding Atlanta, they're mainly urban. They're 96, 99, 100% urban. Look at the income difference too. District 4 has a median income of $47,000, whereas District 6 has a median income of $90,000. Think of like the difference in priorities of those two districts. And then if you look at our more rural districts, right, they're still 60% urban, but their average or their median income is lower than those of surrounding Atlanta. And they also have a high percentage of rural populations. So think, these are 14 people representing 10 million Georgians, but they all have different priorities as well. And I wanted to mention, on our website, there's a bunch of links for you to figure out what district you live in. And even if you don't live in the state of Georgia, these are links to national searches so you can figure out who's your representative. Georgia state representatives, there's a state senate and a state house. The state senate has 56 districts and the state house has 180 districts. And the legislative session in Georgia runs from January to April every year. So Susie looked at all these numbers and she's like, I am one person in 330 million. Why does my representative even care about what I have to say? But don't worry, Paul Politics showed up and was like, actually, this disaster is much to your advantage because they are so overwhelmed that any information you can provide to them can really provide a good, clean path. This is also my pitch. If you're on YouTube, look up I'm Just a Bill, and you can get a little nostalgic for some Schoolhouse Rock. I don't see any questions yet in the chat. All right, cool. We'll keep going. All right, so this is great. You actually have the power. In general, people actually trust scientists. I know that number's going down a little, but you know what you're talking about. And legislators, they're taking on so many issues in a day. Sometimes they're voting on 10 to like 20 bills in one day. They can't possibly process and become experts on all of them. So they're going to welcome your help. If there's something that's important to you, when you speak to them, they're going to assume that if it's important to you, it's important to many of their other registered voters. Remember, they want to get reelected. They also do want to serve their constituents. So if you're speaking to them and you provide information to them, they're going to assume that there's like many people in line behind you also feeling the same way about an issue. How do you effectively tell them something that's important, right? They're very busy, but you also want to tell them something important. So you can send them a letter. If you send them an actual letter in the mail, it will take a while to get to them. If you send them an email, it will get read faster. So there's 4 parts to a letter, right? So first, you're going to introduce yourself. You're going to mention your group affiliations or professional qualifications if they're relevant. If I wrote a letter to my representative and said I was a member of Science for Georgia, but yet was not speaking on behalf of Science for Georgia, that's rude to Science for Georgia. It could get you fired from your job depending on what kind of you're saying. So please be mindful of how you are representing yourself. But definitely say, hi, I'm Amy. I live in your district. I'm an engineer, right? Like that's a great thing to tell them. Make a clear point every letter, there's only 1 point to each letter. So make a clear yes or no stand on it, right? You have to tell them how you feel about the thing and what the thing is, and maybe give them at max 3 supporting points. So for the example here, I'm asking you to support programs to reduce illegal dumping. This is important. Now you want to give them a personal story or somehow show them that how this affects your community, right? You need to have it resonate and become memorable to them. So, I mean, I made up this like heartstring story about my Aunt Louise lives near an unregulated tire dump, and now she's got chronic asthma and the fumes inflame her symptoms. So after too many sick days, she lost her job. She's now on disability. She's worked all her life and now she can't contribute anymore, right? Like this is a real thing, but you could also just generalize it if you don't have an Aunt Louise. And please don't make up an Aunt Louise again, because you want to be honest and trustworthy. And then personally connect yourself to your representative. You know, I voted for you last fall, or I met you at a fundraiser, or I too love the Atlanta Braves. Anything that's just a little bit of, hey, we're all humans here together. And then, so that's it. Make 1 point, make a very clear yes or no stance on it. And please, please, please sign your letter, because if you send an anonymous letter to an elected official, you might end up on a watch list that you don't want to be on. So please don't do that. Other media, you can also send a postcard. That's pretty much the same content as a letter, just kind of do 1 sentence per point as opposed to an entire paragraph. You can send them a tweet. It's effective, especially for bills that are like being voted on like right now or instantaneously. And all you're going to do is be like, at Representative X, vote no or vote yes on bill whatever, or don't approve this Supreme Court justice, or whatever you want to say. Don't put a link in there. They don't have time to follow it. And remember, though, your tweet history is public. So if you're super creative on your tweet history, I applaud your artistic license. But remember, like, if you don't want your grandma reading your tweet history, perhaps don't tweet at your representative. How is this letter then received? If it's a big issue, they're going to just keep a tally, right? Oh, 30 people contacted us to say yes and 45 said no. And definitely make sure your stand's very obvious. And then if it's a new issue or a small issue, they're going to kind of add hey, our constituents contacted us about these 5 things today. You want to be very declarative and clear and concise, and you want to give them an action to take, right? If you're really against illegal tire dumps, but there's no legislation about that at all in front of the Congress or the Senate right now, what you need to do is then be like, it would be really great if you could support measures to increase fines on tire dumps or something like that. Anything to give them a, yeah, this stinks and here's a good solution, or here's a start to a solution. But remember, 1 topic at a time. You can be very passionate. Please don't be crazy town. Don't threaten them. Don't make statements like, if you don't do this, my Aunt Louise's death will be on your head. Like that's not helping, right? You want to be very respectful, clear, concise, to the point, facts. So Susie here, she's feeling good now, right? She's like, I'm going to do 1 issue and I'm going to give them 1 action. And together, success was had. So thank you very much. Remember, 1 topic per contact. On the webpage where you signed up for this, there's a list of how to find your rep, how to register to vote, how to make sure you're registered to vote. Georgia is one of 39 states that has all of this online, and there's links to those. We have a sample postcard, tweet, email. We have a downloadable postcard template. Again, thank you to eScan for the amazing graphics. That's all I have. If anybody's got any questions, I'll happily field them. Either unmute yourself or type them into the chat. Okay, I love this. So either I was super clear and you guys are like all charged up and ready to go, or this was so unclear that you're just gone back into your self sadness that is staying at home alone. All right, I'm going to end the meeting now. Thank you so much for participating. I'm so glad you all showed up. Someone just made a noise. Maybe they just, this is all very confusing. Have a great day, everyone. Write your representative. Thanks. Bye.